Here we are again, ladies and gentlemen, Hudson County View, live and uncut. I'm your favorite host in North Jersey, if not further, the most enigmatic, diplomatic, charismatic guy that you probably ever met, John R. Highness. And today, we got a lot of fun stuff for you, as always. First of all, we're going to talk about the latest developments with CarePoint Health, Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas Health, and Christ Hospital. Of course, there were a lot of concerns that started last week about the possibility of a bankruptcy at Christ Hospital. It looks like that has been averted for the time being, but in the meantime, we've seen some of our Hudson legislators call on Governor Murphy to start a criminal investigation into these owners of this facility. So we certainly are going to discuss that in detail. We're also going to talk to you about a huge court case out of Union City. A municipal employee over there went to a jury in Hudson County, and she was awarded with a $559,000 judgment, and that was in an age discrimination suit. We're going to give you all the details on that. We're also going to have an in-depth discussion about the latest on the Hoboken budget, where that deficit lies, where it's coming from, and what they're going to do in hopes of trying to abate some of those concerns as we head into budget season in the Mile Square City. And we're also going to be joined with Jersey City Councilman at Large Lavarro. All that and a whole lot more when we come right back.
It takes more than a state-of-the-art medical facility to make a great hospital. It takes a team of dedicated medical professionals. That's the Jersey City Medical Center, Hudson County's #1 hospital. Medical teams consisting of New Jersey's top doctors, Magnet Award-winning nurses, and accomplished hospital associates, all committed to your good health. That's what you have at the Jersey City Medical Center. Make Hudson County's #1 hospital your first choice. Visit us on the web at barnabashealth.org. Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunley Avenue, Jersey City. Hudson County's only monument maker, serving all faiths and cemeteries. Design studio and large inventory on site. Cemetery inscriptions and custom orders welcome. Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunley Avenue, just south of Secaucus Road. Craftsmanship that will last for all eternity. Burns Brothers, Jersey City, Albert H. Hopper, North Arlington. Visit us on the net.
Newport, the luxury waterfront community on the Hudson River, offers the quality of life you deserve in 10 high-rise rental towers with amenities such as the on-site Newport Path subway, light rail and ferry service, Newport Town Square, 3 playgrounds, dog run, upscale restaurants, retail giants like Sears, JCPenney, Macy's, and Target. Morton Williams Supermarket is just outside your front door. A health and fitness club, spa, skating rink, and medical facilities are also on site. NewportNJ.com. Enjoy the New York skyline from Newport Town Square. Manhattan is just one path stop away or quick ride through the Holland Tunnel. Nursery and private elementary schools all on site. 12-screen movie theater at the Newport Center Mall. Want to visit Newport? Stay at the Westin or Marriott Hotel. Go to NewportNJ.com for details. Newport has luxurious towers, great restaurants, shopping, New York skyline views, schools, playgrounds, a marina and yacht club, gym, spa, fine wine, fine living. It's incredible. It's you. NewportNJ.com. Newport, live like you want.
Hudson County View, live and uncut. John R. Highness, and as promised, joined with Jersey City Councilman at Large Lavarro. Rolando, thanks for coming in.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, John.
Of course. So, Councilman, you had a very strong op-ed, if I do say so myself, this morning, talking about this planned audit of 178 payment in lieu of taxes. Of course, we all call them pilot agreements from the city of Jersey City. The mayor announced this about 2 weeks ago or so, yep. And I think it's safe to say you're not particularly impressed.
Yeah, look, I'm not impressed. I think we absolutely, as I said in my letter, that we absolutely should do it, and we should reclaim all the monies that were not collected and weren't billed in the past. But as I pointed out in my letter, my editorial there, that you really shouldn't get credit for something that you should have been doing for the past several years now. This goes back to 2013 when we first took office. It was a mandate for everybody at the time. The mayor back then, rightfully, and boasted about taking the reclaiming monies from various developers, including a very public one, which I didn't even cite in the letter, with Newport, and the wagged his finger at the proverbial finger at the Healy administration at the time, saying that they had neglected their duties, and then got into a back and forth war on that for a little bit there, where the Healy administration said, no, in fact, we were looking at these things and trying to collect them. And so back then he made the public statements and promises that we're going to stay on top of this, and nobody's going to be able to escape the long arm of the law of Jersey City in that regard, and we're going to collect these abatements and hold every developer accountable. And lo and behold, several years later, after a series of mismanagement and personnel problems and issues in the city, which are rife throughout the city, we end up with having to basically clean up the tax abatement issue and collecting uncollected monies that should have been collected in the first place.
Now, I think some people have forgot or perhaps weren't even aware, but as we reported in about October, there was a audit from the Board of Ed that said that both the school district and the city were losing out on millions of dollars, and of course that hasn't been checked by any second entity until now. So we'll see what we see. But did you ever get a chance to read that report in full?
I didn't, and I'll be frank with you. At the time, I kind of took that with a grain of salt and looked at the story and looked at the messenger on that, and didn't give it a lot of credibility. I've had conversation with folks in the community since then who've rightfully corrected me on that and said maybe I should have been more on top of that one, because despite the messenger not being an honest messenger and being a corrupt messenger, frankly, that there were potentially credible auditors there who, I'm not familiar who they were, but who actually conducted something and had come up with certain findings, and we should have probably investigated it then and taken a closer look at that. That being said, we're going to do the audit, and we will approve those contracts tonight, I assume, although I'm skeptical as to whether we need really three auditors to complete this job, but we'll discuss that some more tonight at the council.
Sure. So for those that haven't had a chance to look at the agenda, or perhaps just weren't aware, just could you tell us what the resolution says and why this is important with the audit process?
I mean, it basically lays out that there are tax abatements that we need to audit the audit every year, April 30th. Developers who receive a tax abatement have to provide their audited financial statements, and somebody needs to check to make sure those audited financial statements that the revenues and their profits are not exceeding the profits that they're entitled to by virtue of abatement. It's sort of, for lack of a better word, limits their abatements, their profits, and so anything in excess of that, they call it excess profits. The city's entitled to a portion of that. So that resolution essentially allows for the auditors to investigate and to review and assess whether or not they're in compliance with those stipulations within their agreements.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, with that said, at the end of your letter, you said we need to hold these developers accountable, which I think pretty much everyone's in agreement with,
that. Yep.
and the mayor as well. But also, that, like you said, that was back in 2013 when he first made those comments, and now, of course, we're in 2020, and it doesn't look like the city council was aware or had done anything specific related to this. I do know you mentioned that Councilman Young, yourself, Councilman Solomon, did bring this up in 2017. So could you just explain to us why the council wasn't able to do more on this matter?
That's not entirely accurate. So part of what I put into the editorial is that in 2014, December 2014, even though the city had started to reclaim some of the money in terms of formalizing the function, we increased the salary, and it was very explicit. It was it's on the public record, and I recall that from the meeting itself.
Sure,
that,
okay.
we increased the salary of the tax collector at the time with the intention that authority for ensuring and having the responsibility of doing tax abatement compliance, essentially, the financial compliance, would fall on that person being the tax collector at the time. That person was already doing that function because the person under the previous administration, under the Healy administration, had retired, and so she had assumed it, but it wasn't necessarily part of her function as a tax collector itself, her statutory responsibilities in that sense. And so, so we did provide that additional salary increase. And so for the next several years, if you check our records, you'll see over 2014, 15, and 16 that there were, in fact, she continued to do that and continued to collect payments that were excess profits or what they call true-ups and things of that nature that allow for basically that they underpaid their pilot payments at the time. And so she was fairly diligent about following up on that and informed the council about their progress in that regard. It was when she retired in October 2016 is when the things started to break down in the system. And so after that, we hired the first tax collector, and the mayor appointed, which requires the advice and consent of the council, the approval of the council. We hired the first tax collector who succeeded Maureen Cosgrove in that regard, and that person was there with us for a year more or less, and there were a lot of issues there, and she ultimately was terminated, and she's since sued the city. And then after that period of time, we then hired another tax collector who was cited in a state commission report for certain questions as to whether that person was essentially giving contracts to a family member, and so forth, which was cited in news media reports at that time. And we raised questions about that in the city council as to the qualifications of that person and the integrity of that person to be able to do the position. And then ultimately, that person never even got appointed by the city council. That person, never got approved by the city council. The mayor had appointed them, but the council never approved it, and they withdrew that appointment, not once, but twice. They intended to try to get the council to try to authorize that same person to be approved, not just once, but twice. Ultimately, they withdrew it on both occasions, and then the person resigned. And so we've been rudderless since then up until January of this year, literally, and a tax collector has been hired. And throughout that whole period of time, I can only guess, since we are in the place where we are, is that that no one was minding the store during that period. That the tax collector who had done that previously, up until until Maureen Cosgrove retired after 30 years of service and did an excellent job in that capacity, that nobody else was minding the store, and so, and it wasn't without, as you pointed out, members of the city council, Councilman Yun, often being a fiscal watchdog, would point it out in our council meetings and budget hearings and ask if anyone was doing the monitoring, and we were getting assurances that, oh yeah, we're on top of that and we're making sure of that stuff, but clearly that wasn't the case. And we'll see after this audit to what extent that is.
All right. Well,
Yep.
sounds like it's been a long, bumpy road, and let's see if that could course correct. But
Yep.
the actual audit itself. So you obviously recall that the mayor said that this was one of many initiatives he was going to introduce to help save the schools, benefit the schools. Of course, he's come out in support of the school referendum. He thinks an appointed board would allow City Hall to clean up some of the corruption and waste that we've seen over there in many years, I guess probably even decades, right? So what's your take on that?
Look, I did not take a position on the school referendum vote, in part largely because we introduced it and within days called for the vote. I asked that we, not even suggested, I asked that we defer it for one meeting, and the will wasn't there on the part of the council to do that, to at least give the public more opportunity to kind of weigh in on that. That being said, it's, I am not, while I think there are merits, and I've shared this before, I think when you're in a crisis situation, which is a school funding crisis situation, that there's value and merits to being able to kind of centralize decision-making, particularly fiscal decision-making. That being said, I am highly skeptical and dubious of the mayor's, giving the mayor the authority to appoint. And even though there's been talk of, well, we can put in certain restrictions or be able to put qualifications in to be able to do that, I'm still very skeptical. So I'm still kind of giving that a little bit of thought as to the whole position on the school referendum itself. Right now, I'm not terribly inclined to think that it should be a mayoral appointed board. We look at the results as it is, and the tax collector being one of them at this point, right? You can point to that as the ability to appoint and manage talent and then bring in people who can do the job in that regard. People who spoke at the public hearing on that school referendum pointed out there's been 5 recreation directors in 6 years as under this administration. You've got 5 Department of Public Works directors in 6 years under this administration. It's highly questionable. And then at the school board itself, at the Jersey City Employment and Training, we have the ultimate appointment there. And I know folks will suggest that it's, well, that's just one appointment of many, but what an appointment it was. And literally...
Pretty memorable.
What's that?
Pretty memorable.
Pretty memorable, right? And that person was also endorsed in elections, and you know, as other speakers again pointed out during that referendum public hearing, when you look at the school board and where it is today, you can't. No one can suggest, honestly, that Mayor Fulop hasn't been the architect of the schools since he was a councilman back in 2011, and then I was a supporter of that as well, right? So to a certain period in time, up until after he became mayor, and then it, I think, in many ways, we lost our way in that regard, and some people would say maybe we gained our way, depending on which side of the fence you were on that stuff.
So, Councilman, I hate to cut you short,
Sure.
but we're running a little low on time. So
Yep.
just real quick, when we did publish that letter, or that op-ed, whatever you want to call it, this morning, one of the first comments was, it looks like the councilman's gearing up for a challenge against Mayor Fulop. I'm paraphrasing, but what do you think about that reaction?
What I'll say is this, is that back in 2013, myself, Mayor Fulop, and anyone who ran with him on that ticket back then, we all promised we would do 2 terms in our elected capacity. There are no term limits in Jersey City, but we said very openly and publicly and forthrightly that, and we're committed to ensuring that, that there would be self-imposed term limits and set the example in that regard. I intend to keep my promise in that regard, so I won't be running for, it's not my intention to run for re-election for council at large. That being said, I do believe I still have public service in me, and I'm keeping all my options open.
Very good. Councilman,
Yep.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Good luck tonight. Looks like
you.
you got a long one.
Yes, I
Ladies
do.
and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. We're going to be right back.
The Jersey City Medical Center, you know it for its award-winning, life-saving ambulance service. It's also your health hub, with health and wellness locations staffed with certified professionals all through Hudson County. The Jersey City Medical Center, here to help you with your healthy, here when you need us the most. The Jersey City Medical Center. Visit us on the net to learn more. Jersey City Medical Center, Robert Wood Johnson, Barnabas Health Facility. Let's be healthy together.
Good Friend Self-Storage in North Bergen, New Jersey is a fully climate-controlled facility equipped with state-of-the-art security, packing supplies, a Refer Friend program, and multiple loading docks convenient for commercial use. Located just off of Route 3 at 4301 Tunnelly Avenue, Route 1 and 9. Call 201-867-2444 or visit us on the web today. Good Friend Self-Storage. Let us be your good friend.
Consumer Carpets, 3408 Kennedy Boulevard in the Jersey City Heights, your one-stop store for residential and commercial floor treatments, carpeting, linoleum, tiles, laminates, hardwood floors, area rugs, remnants, all major brands, all in stock. Free estimates, same-day installation. Consumer Carpets, it's savings, selection, installation. Credit cards and debit cards accepted. Financing available. Consumer Carpets, price to fit your budget, installation to fit your schedule. On the net at consumercarpets.com. Consumer Carpets, Jersey City, 201-792-2720.
Hudson County View live at Uncut, and John Arhitis back and here to tell you a little bit about the latest on CarePoint at Christ Hospital. So it's been an interesting week in that regard. Obviously, as I mentioned at the top of the show, there were some concerns about the CarePoint owners having Christ Hospital declare bankruptcy. That did not happen. Mayor Fulop and others, State Senator Stack, some of the members of the Assembly delegation met with leadership from CarePoint and Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas Health. And, you know, a lot of people came away saying it was a productive meeting and they're happy that everybody's back at the table. Whether or not we could actually see an agreement between those two parties is yet to be seen. But just 24 hours before that, you just saw a letter show up behind me. Some of you guys, hopefully most of you have had a chance to read it, but that was the Hudson County legislators. Of course, that's our state senators, Brian Stack, Sandra Cunningham, and Nick Sacco, as well as our Assembly delegates. That's Annette Chaparro, Raj Mukherjee, Angelica Jimenez, Pedro Mejia, and of course, Angela McKnight and Nick Schrabalati, all sending a letter to Governor Murphy, and they made some pretty bold claims, one of which calling for a criminal investigation into the CarePoint owners. So let me read you a quick excerpt from the bottom there. And they said, we request the Department of Health, the Department of Banking and Insurance, and Attorney General investigate the operations of Clover Health and Alaris Health, both of which companies are owned and operated by CarePoint owners, to determine if similar actions threaten to compromise patient care or are otherwise violative of regulations are underway. So that's one aspect of the letter. Another aspect is that they requested that state monitors come to the Hoboken University Medical Center as well as the Bayonne Medical Center. I'm sure everybody tuning in knows that last week the Department of Health, under the watch of Governor Phil Murphy, had a state monitor appointed to Christ Hospital. Again, that was in hopes of keeping all 3 hospitals open for as long as possible. So, certainly a very interesting letter. I recommend you guys read it. It's only about a page and a half, but it really gives you some color on what exactly has been happening here. I think you can see the frustration in the Hudson leadership here with this situation. I mean, obviously this has been lingering for quite some time. I mean, we heard about the possible sale back in October between Robert Wood Johnson and Barnabas Health. They were going to acquire Christ Hospital and the Hoboken University Medical Center. There was a letter of intent signed. Everything looked like it was going smooth. And just, the past few weeks, we've been hearing now that things have hit a snag, and who knows what's going to happen. Will there be bankruptcies? Will the state appoint monitors to each hospital? I guess that and anything in between is still on the table. It's really a day-by-day situation, and we want to keep you certainly as informed as possible on that. Obviously, Hudson County, one of the most densely populated counties in New Jersey, and the hospital care provided by the CarePoint facilities are vital. So whether that's run by Robert Wood Johnson or anybody else, certainly a huge news topic. It's something that would really have a huge impact on quality of life. So that's something that, again, we want to make sure that you are 100% informed on, and we're going to stay on top of it. So I'm going to switch gears since we're running a little short on time. I'm going to go right into talking about the Hoboken budget. So you guys saw last week that Second Ward Councilwoman Tiffany Fisher spoke about how the budget deficit for 2020 could go as high as $14 million. Now, when we sat down with some officials from City Hall on Monday, they explained to us that healthcare costs, as well as some other things that they feel are out of their hands, are what is contributing to some of these increased budget deficits. So, let me just open that up for you and give you some of the particulars. And this is all coming, by the way, at a time when their former healthcare provider, United Healthcare, is suing them for a $60,000 non-payment. And on top of that, they want fees, interest, and any other relief deemed equitable by the court. So, things are getting a little chaotic in Hoboken. I mean, no surprise to any of you that have been following. But this whole budget situation looks like something that is going to go down to the wire. And, we've heard Business Administrator Stephen Marks talk about how the healthcare costs are up about $1.5 million from the previous year. We've talked about how the parking utilities down about $600,000 in revenue. We've talked about how the municipal court's down about $400,000 in revenue. Of course, these are all big things. They've also told us, though, that labor contracts, there's 6 labor contracts that need to be settled. They're all overdue, so those will all be 3-year terms, and they'd be retroactive for 2018, 2019, and 2020. So certainly that is something that is very important to consider when we're looking at all this. And, another thing to consider is, of course, spending. When we're talking about municipal employee raises, when we're talking about, those insurance packages, as, we were just having a conversation about. And it's something that, has led to a letter to civil service asking for authorization to notice 79 employees. Now, of course, those 79 layoffs would have only be in a doomsday kind of scenario, but that's something that's on the table on top of a tax increase. So this is something where a lot of people are going to have to put their heads together in order to have an outcome to give, the most reasonable tax increase with the least amount of people laid off, I guess, really in simplest terms. So there's a lot to see. I mean, if you haven't read the report about that, I suggest you do. I mean, there's a lot of numbers in there and a lot of context on what's happening. Again, this is a topic that we're going to discuss in depth. On that, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then with just a couple things before we call it a day here.
Rama Jewelers, located in the Lyndhurst Shopping Center at 413 Valley Brook Avenue, Lyndhurst. Come for all your jeweler needs at Rama Jewelers, where you will find a fine selection of necklaces, earrings, rings, and bracelets. Choose from one of our complete sets, our many signature items, or find the perfect engagement ring. Come on down. That's Rama Jewelers at 413 Valley Brook Ave, Lyndhurst. Call 201-939-5784 or visit us online today.
Introducing the My JCMC app. Powered by Practice Unite. The free MyJCMC app puts the power of healthcare at your fingertips. Go to the concierge for access to referrals, scheduling, and appointments. See emergency room wait times and get directions to Jersey City Medical Center health locations. Read the latest JCMC news through their social media feed, find a doctor, and more. The MyJCMC app. We belong to you.
Hudson County View, live at Uncut, John Arhitis. And, certainly we wouldn't want to conclude without telling you about this huge Hudson County Superior Court decision related to Union City City Hall. Ruth DePalma, 70, a 23-year veteran of the tax department working as a cashier, received a $558,633.25 jury award on February 3rd following a 13-day trial. Back in 2018, she filed a lawsuit alleging that she was a victim of age discrimination as well as a hostile work environment. And, let me tell you a little bit about this whole situation according to the lawsuit. So, from the outset of her transfer to the tax department, plaintiff was treated differently from her younger, non-Hispanic co-workers. Again, this is according to the suit. For example, the city failed to provide her with any training or other information regarding the specifics of her role within the department. For the first few months, failed to provide her with a desk or any place in which to work. And it continues that she dealt with this hostile and what she says inappropriate work environment, since 2009, and that all came to a head in 2017 when she got legal representation, and that led to a confrontation with her boss, Sonia Schulman, who was named in the suit. And again, I guess the expert really speaks better than I could. It says, on December 4, 2017, Shulman berated plaintiff to another employee upon learning that plaintiff had retained counsel. Shulman called plaintiff a stupid female dog, I think you know what I'm talking about, and complained that plaintiff had hired a cheap attorney who will help her, the suit says. And Shulman proceeded to advise she could not wait for the city to get rid of that old female dog once and for all. So, obviously this was a very bitter situation. She claims in the suit that she talked to her superiors, which at one point included reaching out to the mayor, none of which responded to her, and she filed this complaint, and it went to a jury, again, 13-day trial, and she was awarded quite a large sum of money, over $500,000, as I just said a few moments ago. The city of Union City is, of course, already appealing the decision. They are saying that this does not meet, hang on one second, the court's definition of pain and suffering. And, meanwhile, her attorneys, Ruth DePalma, that is, are arguing that at most they could get a sum reduced by $20,000. So we're going to see what the judge decides to do, which is Kimberly Malonis Espinal. We'll see what she decides to do in this case, but it doesn't appear that this is going to change greatly, if at all. But regardless of the outcome, we're going to let you know. So with that, we're going to call it a day. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next week.